Welcome to Brain Health Besties, a human-forward podcast for those of us who want to feel better but don't know where to start. I'm Bailey, a licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Nia, a qualified mental health professional.
And I'm Shelby, a human.
We are so glad you're here. And we believe that you deserve to know how your brain works and how to nurture it, even when self-care feels a little challenging.
We focus on kindness to ourselves and recognizing our own needs with as little guilt as possible, because your brain deserves a bestie.
Stars in my eyes, I can't see which way is right, but oh, if there's one thing that I know, it's only up front.
Hey besties, the practices we talk about here are great for your brain, but this podcast isn't treatment. If you're feeling overwhelmed, please call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Help is always available.
Hey besties, you're tuning into a Learning Together episode where we explore different ways to care for our brains and the science behind it. Today's episode is all about gratitude, but before we dive in, we are going to do our usual practice of self-assessment. So if you'd like to take a deep breath and kind of settle into this moment, and if it feels right on that 1 to 5 scale, go ahead and put a number to it.
I had to think of mine a little bit. I think I'm going to go for 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't normally have halves, but I think it's just doing new things.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting close to lunchtime.
It
You know,
is.
all that kind of stuff, and all those little pieces matter.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm at a 1.5.
All right.
Yeah.
Bailey?
I'd put myself about a 2, which is lower than I was reading earlier today. Just kind of settling in a little bit. I think sometimes coming in high energy and then just giving myself a few minutes to settle in is helpful.
Yeah. Well, first off, I lied. It's a 0 to 5 scale, besties. So if you do need to use a 0, you can. But today, right now, I am also feeling about a 2, which is, again, as Bailey said, a little bit lower than I was rating earlier today. We've had some time to connect and kind of settle in, and that has definitely helped. So I'm probably about a 2 right now.
I love that.
All right. So today we are talking about gratitude, specifically finding beauty as a way to train our brains for gratitude.
Yep.
And sometimes gratitude can feel almost like toxic positivity, that like good vibes only. We're not allowed to feel anything but happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not what we're talking about today.
No.
We are talking about the science behind gratitude and what it does for our brains while still honoring our whole human experience and everything that comes along with it.
Yeah. I really am glad that we're talking about this topic of gratitude. But you're right. I mean, I think what I picked up and what you were just saying then is sometimes like the word gratitude or even just the idea of gratitude can sound like fluffy, like it's just kind of empty words, or maybe even just really hard to obtain, or scary, or maybe there's a little bit of why don't I have it kind of thing. So today, we're going to be able to talk through that and piece it down into little tiny pieces, hopefully, that people can kind of take what they need from it.
Yeah. And make it kind of tangible, I think, is the goal today. I'm going to be real honest, besties. This is one I struggle with sometimes, especially in those hard moments. Gratitude can feel out of reach or invalidating almost. Like it's like I am feeling all these things and I'm also supposed to be grateful for something. So I do struggle with this one sometimes.
And that's a completely normal reaction. So just like any other practice or anything else we talk about on this podcast and between each other, there are moments when something fits and works, and there are moments when it doesn't. Maybe gratitude for us when we are in the really hard of life is not the best practice to lean into for us, and that's completely okay. And it can feel invalidating if at times for some of us, if we're in a hard moment and we're just trying to find all the things we're grateful for. And we also know at the same time that can be true. And there's a lot of research behind how gratitude can be impactful for our brains, especially when we have a practice of gratitude. And I'm sure our besties are going to get tired of us talking about practice. But the reality is our brains, if we think about it, it's not a muscle, but if we think about it like a muscle that we're training, it needs the practice so that
does.
it is more likely to lean into those things when moments are hard. And maybe gratitude becomes a little more obtainable or reachable in those moments where in our past it's felt really unobtainable.
Yeah, again, gratitude is just really amazing. And I think the best news that I can give you guys today is that our brains are really capable. You know, they are able to, like you said, like that muscle that we're building, but that's building in the positives if we need it. At times, well, and actually kind of the human beings we're actually wired toward that negative or that being on alert all the time because we want to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. So it's also sometimes the case that we can get stuck there as well. Sometimes, and you may know people that unfortunately get into let's just go for a negative self-talk and it snowballs and snowballs and snowballs and it lets them not have the best day. So the good news is that our brains can also be taught in the other way.
Yeah.
And that is with that practice. And again, that practice is trying it out, trying something else out. Because when we do that, we get all kinds of benefits. So if we have the ability to see some gratitude, we are able to connect better with people around us. We are better able to kind of create those relationships, to be able to kind of understand each other more, have connections that feel just real and comfortable. And those are good things.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happens in our brains and what research shows happens in our brains.
Why it matters.
Yeah.
It does.
Why it
This is
matters.
why it
right?
matters.
Is it creates serotonin and dopamine, which are, if we think of serotonin as a satisfaction chemical, it's the one that helps us feel satisfaction in our experiences. And then dopamine creates hope and motivation. It is the thing that keeps us moving even when life is hard. And I hear you talking about the what we call pro-social behaviors in the therapy world, these things that help us feel connected. When we're satisfied in our relationships because we're engaging in a grateful manner, when we feel motivated to continue to show up and to appreciate our people, that creates more pro-social behaviors too. And there's actually, when we were researching for this particular episode, I found this study by Kinney et al., which just means Kinney and some of their colleagues, right, that were working on a particular type of gratitude study where they were taking MRI scans of people's brains after expressing and regularly practicing gratitude. They were doing a writing exercise where they wrote down about the things that they were grateful for. And what they found is that the areas of the brain that are commonly associated with those pro-social behaviors with relationship and connection were activated when they were expressing gratitude. And the really cool thing about this study, or at least I think it's really cool, is that after the study completed, they continued to follow the participants for the next 3 months. And what they found is those increased levels of dopamine and serotonin continued 3 months after they were a part of the research study. So either people were continuing to practice or it lasted in their brain that long. And so if that is, there's compound interest on that. The more gratitude we express, the more we feel it, and the easier it is for us to pick up on things. So I really love going to some of the neuroscience on, okay, yeah, but what is happening in our brain? That's just what I kind of nerd out about.
Yeah. Well, and to follow up on that, I'm curious, and I think our besties might be a little curious too. We're talking about this practice of gratitude, but how long does it take to get benefits from it?
Yeah. And what research leans, and we're always learning new things in research, but what research is leaning towards is it's kind of a double factor. You get those immediate boosts of dopamine and serotonin, and then you also have long-term reservoirs that are built up. It's the same thing we see with like physical exercise and moving our bodies. We get those immediate benefits. And then when we practice it, engage in it regularly, then what we see is this well of positive neurochemicals building up for us too. And so that we can reach into that later too. So it's kind of both. It's short-term and long-term. So you can get that immediate, and then you can also work up to having a deeper reservoir of those things.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too that actual research that we're talking about is, I guess I'll say, newer but it also actually started in the 1950s with just a few studies. Because again, I mean, that's just something, again, we talked about the dopamine and serotonin. We want that, right? Our brain wants that. So research now, a little bit more current, 2023, it was actually a foundation of the John Templeton Foundation that now we're seeing 2023, probably 2,300 different pieces of information on gratitude. Whereas in the beginning, it was just those one or two. I think 2015, you only had about 100 studies about gratitude. So my guess is that we like this, this topic. We like this topic.
Yeah. Well, I think that's because you can feel it, right? It can be tricky because, as Shelby said, it can feel invalidating. But Shelby, you looked up the definition of gratitude and had sort of an aha moment.
Yeah, and this is really kind of what clicked in my brain, I think. And I think it's probably because sometimes we hear grateful or gratitude as a buzzword, as just like empty advertising words, or we could have negative experiences related to somebody saying you should just be grateful. So the definition of gratitude is a feeling of appreciation or thankfulness. And that word appreciation really clicked in my brain because for me, it seems easier to feel appreciation than it does necessarily gratitude. Gratitude feels sometimes really grand and large and hard to obtain. But appreciation is something that I can do daily. I can appreciate seeing a friend's face. I can appreciate, wow, the sun looks really pretty today. I can appreciate the goslings are finally hatching. Just little things that don't necessarily feel as overwhelming or as hard to obtain as the word gratitude does.
Yes. I had a really real, like a very real life experience of that. When I was in college, I took a photography course, and it was not just digital. We were like film photography, which meant that I was constantly looking for the perfect shot because I only had so much film. I was a poor college kid who couldn't just buy film nonstop. And even at that point, y'all, I'm not that old. Even at that point, like film was a bit archaic, but it was really cool because it was a whole process. But it meant that I was really intentional about finding the best photos to take. And what it did, the year-long class that I took, because I took multiple levels of the course, it meant I spent a year looking for the perfect photos. And that was everything from a beautiful sunset with a horse standing in front of it silhouetted to the tiniest pebbles and how they're the different colors and sitting next to each other and how brilliant and beautiful those were. And so I was paying attention, looking to and at things that were maybe obscure that I would not have noticed. I would have just kept driving by the barn falling apart and the way the sun was shining through it, or I would have walked right by the pebbles and not thought twice. But I had trained my brain to look for and notice those teeny tiny details of beauty around me. And now that I'm saying that, I'm like, oof, it would probably be pretty helpful to get back to that. It was such a cool, because I was looking for it everywhere. So that was kind of a real life thing that I didn't realize until we were here talking about, like, oh yeah, I used to do this. I could get back to that.
It's really cool. That does make me curious how you guys are experiencing or practicing gratitude now, and what that kind of looks like in your day-to-day lives.
I think I kind of pop back to your appreciation with the gratitude, because I think sometimes we need a starting point, right? A lot of these things, again, we're practicing, but maybe we haven't had a chance to. So I can remember a time that I like to give challenges because, right, a challenge is just something you can take or not. That's just your own personal challenge. You can even switch it up if you wanted to. But I had a friend, and we were both wanting to kind of just experience gratitude more. Sometimes, like Shelby said, sometimes you see it as a buzzword. Sometimes social media, it's all about gratitude. So there's shows about gratitude. So maybe it was around that time that it was just in the news more. But we decided to do it together. Right? We started with they would send me, and we just went with 3 things that we were grateful for. They would send me 3 things just on the phone, and I would send it back. And then later we moved it to just a little tiny journal, because it was so cool to be able to write that down. Writing it down kind of gets it out. Plus you kind of look back to it. But it was great because we kind of challenged each other.
Mm-hmm.
I would get a text and I'd be like, oh, I haven't done mine today.
Yeah.
And it was so great to be able to sit down and let me take a minute here and let me write down these things. And again, I got that great elevation out of it. So being together in community, just helping each other out, supporting each other, even in something like this.
Yeah, like almost like the connection and then also an accountability partner.
Yes.
I think sometimes we say that and that feels negative, but it's just my brain oftentimes needs the reminders. And if somebody's willing to help me out, I will gladly take it. Yeah, that is really cool. I am also curious about how you all sink into gratitude. So Nia's talking about utilizing connection as a way to kind of bolster that. Shelby, I know I'm curious, especially since gratitude can sometimes be a stretch for you. What are some of the ways that you sink into gratitude?
Yeah, so I think I really have to slow down and I have to be very intentional about it. And I tend to find tangible and physical things a little bit easier to latch onto and to find. So things like stepping outside in the morning. My dog sometimes has me up before my alarm goes off. But even in those moments where I step outside and the sun is just rising and just pausing and taking a deep breath for a second and being like, wow, I would 100% rather be in bed right now. And man, the sunrise is really pretty.
Yeah.
And so just sinking into being in the moment, and some of those physical things are just a little bit easier for me sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about, and that's a sort of mental inventory, right? And Nia talked about the benefits of writing things down. And there's lots of research that supports both, that writing things down actually helps concretize that for us so that we can continue to process it a little bit further. And taking mental inventory is also a fantastic way to practice gratitude easily and accessibly. What we know is that, or what research shows, is that when we get more detailed or granular, the more benefit we can get from that. And we can start with the big stuff. Like we can start with things like, I am grateful for my health. I am grateful for nature. And then we can kind of dial in from there. So maybe today I say I'm grateful for nature. Maybe tomorrow I say I'm grateful for the sunset. Maybe the day after that, I'm Nia walking outside and find the tiniest little acorns that I'm just in love with.
Yeah.
And so we can start in those wide spaces. The question I sometimes ask myself is, what about nature am I grateful for? And that can kind of be a door open to thinking a little deeper about that.
Yeah. So starting where we are.
Yeah.
Right. Starting with what we have, starting with our own ability. Right? If we're just practicing, then we practice the small parts first. Yeah, I like that, though. The being able to, if you choose to, being able to go a little bit deeper and kind of piece it out a little bit more and asking yourself those questions, kind of being curious when you're out there.
Yeah. And our practice today in our next episode is a practice of gratitude and finding things of beauty and kind of how to train our brains to do that. And I think I'm ready to practice, friends.
I think I am too.
Love that.
Awesome. Besties, thank you for joining us in community today while we chatted about gratitude. If you'd like to practice our finding things of beauty mindfulness practice with us, please join us in our next episode, episode 12, and we will walk through that together. Until next time, be well.
If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Brain Health Besties so you can find us in the future.
And since sharing is kind, share us with your besties.
If you have mental health or wellness topics you'd like us to chat about, please reach out to bewell@livebrightly.org.
Until next time, be well, besties.
Shining brighter than the sun.